Norwich City Council lighting up one of the city's most recognisable landmarks to mark the first anniversary of the death of George Floyd. The City Hall was lit yellow, pink and turquoise in remembrance of his death and all black lives lost in the aftermath. Mr. Floyd died, of course, in Minneapolis last year. Derek Chauvin, the police officer, knelt on his neck. He was found guilty of murder. He's likely to be spending the rest of his life in jail. He'll be sentenced in June. Why has the death of George Floyd become an event in this way? Lesley Grahame is Green Councillor for Thorpe Hamlet in Norwich City Council, who was one of those who asked for City Hall to be lit up for this anniversary. Good afternoon to you, Lesley.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure.
May I say first that there are many tragedies which deserve to be commemorated. And if there's one that you're particularly concerned about, I would encourage you to talk to your council and light up City Hall.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that they'll say yes. You
That's
don't
good.
have to be a councillor to do that.
Nice.
The council is there for you. So it's
That
about
is nice.
who we're commemorating.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
about...
that's lovely to hear that, and it's always worth, penning a little note to your council. Some might say, however, that some things are kind of self-evident, really, that, if you've got the anniversary of Manchester, the anniversary of Lee Rigby, the last thing you'd want to do on that very day would have a commemoration to a citizen who died 4,000 miles away in Minneapolis at the hands of a madman.
It's not either or. Nobody should die at the hands of a madman.
But there's a priority, isn't there?
You have a young woman in hospital fighting for her life after being attacked, and we don't know who by, but already the police are saying it probably wasn't a racist attack. Well, maybe it wasn't, but isn't that a line of investigation that they should be taking?
Yes, indeed, and maybe they have information to make that initial statement. I don't know. I mean, I think to bring it back to what you guys did in Norwich, I think some people might think, well, what would be the reason you would arrive at a story from another country and a citizen from another, terrible as it was, global as it was? What would be your reasons for focusing on that above some pretty obvious areas that domestically would perhaps be more helpful or relevant to both people in Norwich and beyond?
Well, sadly, George Floyd is not alone in having been murdered by the police. What makes him unique or almost unique is having been filmed being murdered. And so my thoughts go out to everyone who's been bereaved and who is grieving. But another thing that died on that day is the ability of people not affected by racism to imagine that to deny the systemic racism that allows such events to happen.
What's racism got to do with it? This was nothing to do with racism, Lesley.
Sorry, George Floyd's murder was everything to do with racism.
No, it wasn't. There was no racist component to it at all.
I would dispute that. In whose world is it okay to to treat anybody like that?
Well, it's not okay to treat anybody, but the issue is whether there was a racist element. If you look at the court papers and follow the case, there was no, this wasn't a racist murder, it was a murder. There wasn't a racist element to it whatsoever. There was no accusation of it or no suggestion of it.
You ask any
You didn't know that,
family
did you?
You ask any family where kids are taught to keep their heads down and avoid trouble from the police.
Yes.
Any family where they're frightened to call the police when they're in danger.
Sorry, what's the point?
My point is that black people don't get the protection they deserve from the police in America, and we need to look at whether or not that is the case here.
I mean, we have, but you're perpetrating that, aren't you? You're importing a story that never actually happened from America. You're not alone, by the way. It's not you. The American president joined in with this hysteria as well by pretending it was a racially motivated crime when it absolutely wasn't. But of course, there are other people. 500 white people have died since 2020 at the hands of the police in America. Twice the number of blacks that have died. Now, I know there's a percentage difference in terms of population. There's also a criminal difference in that same percentage as well. I mean, do we look and, are we going to have a day in Norwich for Tony Timper? I doubt you even know who Tony Timper is.
Would you like to tell me?
He's a white guy that died under almost the same circumstances as George Floyd. In 2016 in Dallas, he could hardly breathe, he said. 30 times he called out for his life before he took his last breath. Nobody lit up a town hall in Norwich for him.
Well, maybe they should have done. if somebody asks us to do that, then we should consider it.
But it doesn't remove the confusion. And we've had some of your constituents on with us this afternoon, Lesley. And, you know, I'm sure you're a nice person. I'm sure so are your colleagues over there at Norwich Council. But it's just a sense that, was this the right cause? What's your reason for doing it? And there's a sense this was all about kind of patting yourself on the back a bit, getting involved in something. Racism seems a bit cool. This thing was on the telly quite a lot. That's the one to get involved with, rather than Manchester or Lee Rigby.
There is nothing cool about racism.
No, the cause, the virtuous cause of advancing something that would make you feel better about doing it.
Well, the degree of racism has been exposed by the George Floyd case.
What's the racism like in Norwich? What's the figures looking like over there? Because, like, looking at your town hall, I'm beginning to think it's like Johannesburg a couple of decades back, but the figures don't seem to bear that out, Lesley.
I think you would have to ask the people who have direct experience of racism, and I don't feel qualified to answer that.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. But do you understand why some people might be confused that you picked this cause above others? I mean, this was a straight case of a very bad, psychopathic even, police officer who did bad, killing a citizen. The citizen died, the police officer is going to jail. And he almost got away
with it, and might have done had there not been the outcry that there was.
Well, that doesn't mean he was going to get away with it, does it? I mean, some people do, some people don't. We will never know that. But he didn't get away with it. He's going to jail for the rest of his days.
And so he should.
And his colleagues spoke out against him in court. The very people that I would have imagined, Lesley, would argue are also in it up to their neck when it comes to this kind of thing. They all spoke out against him, not for him.
And so they should. But he came close to not getting prosecuted. And I would say that one of the reasons that he did get prosecuted was because of the outcry at what they witnessed and filmed. It can no longer be denied because it was filmed.
Well, indeed, but I mean, that goes for any crime, doesn't it? I mean, that's not exclusive to this. I mean, it was filmed, and therefore that formed the most fantastic evidence in a prosecution against him. But nobody is disputing that. My point is that it's lots of people are killed at the hands of a mad person or a person with murderous intent every day around the world. Why did you pick this one particular crime, nowhere near Norwich, to highlight and go to the extent of lighting up an entire town hall? I mean, it's quite a bit of choreography you had going on there with your light show.
Apologies.
That's all right. I tell you what.
The point is, this murder awoke a disgust that was latent and that needs to be there.
Yeah, I don't think people would say it was latent.
When somebody is murdered by the people who are charged with protecting them.
Yes, yeah, and that's what happened. The rule of law presided and was able to send a man to jail for the wrongdoing of killing a citizen, an innocent man. Lesley, thank you for that. That's Lesley Grahame.